CrispyCats, and welcome to Bedtime Stories with CrispySkates. Take 3. I almost didn't do a live this evening, but you guys make me really happy. I was trying to say that earlier, and I love y'all. So, I am. I'm gonna read, and then I'm gonna watch my favorite YouTuber, Extra Crispy, has a new video. I'm excited to watch it, so y'all should watch it too if you like that. Anyway, let's dive in to The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grant. He slept till a late hour the next morning. By the time he got down, he found the other animals had finished their breakfast some time before. The mole had slipped off somewhere by himself without telling anyone where he was going. The badger sat in the armchair, reading the paper and not concerning himself in the slightest about what was going to happen that very evening. The rat, on the other hand, was running around the room busily, with his arms full of weapons of every kind, distributing them in 4 little heaps on the floor, saying exactly under his breath as he ran, "Here's a sword for the rat. Here's a sword for the mole. Here's a sword for the toad. Here's a sword for the badger. Here's a pistol for the rat. Here's a pistol for the toad. Here's a pistol for the mole. Here's a pistol for the badger." And so on in a regular rhythmical way, while the 4 little heaps gradually grew and grew. "That's a very well," said the rat. And Badger, presently looking at the little busy animal over the edge of his newspaper, "I'm not blaming you. Just let us once get past the Stoics with those detestable guns of theirs, and I'll assure that you shan't want any swords or pistols. We've war with our sticks once we're inside the ding hall. Why, why, we shall clear the floor of all of them in 5 minutes. I've done the whole thing by myself. Only I didn't want to deprive you fellows of the fun." It fell to be on the safe side, and Rat said effectively, polishing the pistol on his sleeve and looking at it a long time. The toad, having finished his breakfast, picked up the stoat and swung the stick vigorously, blabbering imaginary animals. I'll learn 'em to steal my house," he cried. I'll learn 'em. "Don't say learn 'em, Toad," the rat said, greatly shocked. "It's not good English." "What are you always nagging at Toad for?" inquired the badger rather peevishly. "What's the matter with his English? It's the same what I use myself, and if it's good enough for me, it ought to be good enough for you." "But we don't want to teach him," replied the badger. "We want to learn him. Learn him. And that's once more what we're gonna do with it." "Oh, very well. You have it your own way," said the rat. He was getting rather muddled about himself, and presently he retired into the corner where he could be heard muttering, "Learn 'em. Teach 'em, learn 'em, teach 'em," till the badger told him rather sharply to leave them off. Presently the mole came trembling into the room, evidently pleased with himself. "I've been having such fun," he said. "I've been getting a rise out of the Stoics." "I hope you've been very careful, Mole," said the rat anxiously. "I should hope so too," said the mole confidently. "I got an idea when I went into the kitchen to see about Toad's breakfast being kept hot for him. I found an old washerwoman dress that he came home yesterday, hanging on the towel horse before the fire. So I put it on, the bonnet as well, and the shawl, and off I went to Toad Hall, as bold as you please. The sentries were on the lookout, of course, but their guns, and who comes there? And all the rest of their nonsense. Good morning, gentlemen, says I very respectfully. Want any washing done today? They looked at me proud and stiff and hotly and said, Go away, washerwoman. We don't have any duty for you. Or any other time. Says, Oh, ho, ho, ho. I wasn't I funny, Toad. Poor frivolous animal, said Toad very loftily. The fact is, felt exceedingly jealous of them all. What had done? It was exactly what he would have liked to have done himself, if only he thought of it first, and had gone over and slept himself. Some of the stoats turned quite pink, continued the mole. A sergeant in charge, he said to me very short, he said, Now run away, my good woman, run away. Don't keep my men idling and talking in their posts. Run away, says I. It won't be me that'll be running away in very short time from now. Oh, Molly, how could you? Said the rat, dismayed. The badger laid down his paper. I could see them pricking up their ears and looking at each other, went on the mole. The sergeant said to them, Never mind her. She doesn't even know what she's talking about. Oh, don't I? And said I, Well, let me tell you this. My daughter, she washes for Mr. Badger, and that'll show you whether or not I know what I'm talking about. And you'll know pretty soon, too. A humbled, bloodthirsty badger's armed rifles are going to attack toads all this very night by way of the paddock. 6 boatloads of rats with pistols and cutlass will come up the river in an effort, landing in the garden, while a picked body of toads known as the diehards and the death of glorious toads will storm the orchard and carry away everything before them, yelling vengeance. There won't be anything left of you to wash by the time they're done with you, unless you clear out while you have the chance. Then I ran away. When I was out of sight, I hid presently. I came creeping along the backside, the ditch, and took a peep at them through the hedge. They were all nervous and flustered as could be, running always at once and falling over each other, and everyone giving orders to everybody else and not listening. The sergeant kept sending off parties of stoats to distant parts on the ground, and then sending other fellows to fetch him back again. I heard them saying to each other, That's just like the weasels. They're to stop comfortably in the banquet hall and have feasting and toasts of songs and all sorts of fun, while we must stay on guard in the cold, dark, and have to be at the end cut pieces of bloodthirsty badgers. Oh, silly you, Mole, cried Toad. You've been a spoil everything, Mole, and the badger in his dry, quiet way. I perceive you more sense in your little finger than some animals have in their whole fat bodies. You have managed excellently, I began to have great hopes for you. Good mole, clever mole. The mole, simply wild with jealousy, more especially as he could make out for the life of him what Mole had done that was so particularly clever. But fortunately for him, before he could show his temper or expose himself to Badger's sarcasm, the bell rang for the luncheon, and was a simple, sustaining meal. The bacon and boards and beans and macaroni and pudding, and they went quiet done. And Badger settled himself into the armchair and said, well, we've got our work cut out for us tonight, and it probably won't be pretty late before we quite with it. So I'm just going to take 40 winks while I can. And he drew the handkerchief over his face while he was snoring. The anxious, laborious rat at once resumed his perpetuous and started running down between his four little heaps, muttering, he's a belt for the rat, he's a belt for the mole, he's a belt for the toad, he's a belt for the badger, and so on with every fresh encounterment that he produced, to which there seemed no end. So the mole drew his arm through Toad's and led him into the open air, shoved him into a wicker chair, and made him tell all the adventures from the beginning to the end, which Toad was only too willing to do. The mole was a good listener, and Toad, with no spirit, one check in his statement, or to criticize an unfriendly spirit, properly to category of what might have happened had I only thought of it in this time of 10 minutes afterwards. Those are always the best and the raciest of adventures, and why should they have not been truly ours, as much as the somewhat inadequate things that really come off? Hi, Barcelona. How are you? Thanks for joining me so late tonight. I actually left my little guy in my bed. He's asleep. But I hope you guys have lovely dreams. And I am going to go take a bubble bath and watch Extra Crispy. I suggest you guys do the same. But thank you for being here. You always make me smile. Sweet dreams. Keep it crispy. Good night, you guys.